At Mass, we are not only nourished at the table of sacrifice, but we're also nourished here at the table of God's Word. Here, God's Word is proclaimed and broken among His people. We're inspired, we're challenged, and we're changed. The first reading is usually from the Old Testament, except during the Easter season, when we listen to the Acts of the Apostles, the story of the early Christians. But the first reading and the Gospel usually complement each other with a common theme, and it's good to try and identify that theme when we come to Mass, so that God's Word proclaimed in the Old Testament is fulfilled in the New, in the person of Jesus.
The lectionary, or our cycle of readings through the church year, is actually, for our Sundays and major feast days, on a cycle of 3 years. And during the course of the year, we hear large portions of the Old Testament, major portions of the New Testament, letters, the Acts of the Apostles, and the book of Revelation, and the great majority of the texts of the 4 Gospels. The real hinge of the liturgy of the Word is always the Gospel, and the other texts build on or flow from or even set the stage for the proclamation of the Gospel. During the course of the Sundays of the year, in ordinary time especially, the Gospel reading follows a semi-continuous pattern. So in cycle A, we read primarily from the Gospel of Matthew, in cycle B, primarily from the Gospel of Mark, in cycle C, primarily from the Gospel of Luke, with large portions of the Gospel of John interspersed throughout the year, especially during Lent and the Easter seasons, and some portions of the Mark cycle in cycle B. During ordinary time, the Old Testament reading is chosen so that in some way it might echo or set the stage for the proclamation of the gospel. The second reading, usually from one of the epistles, primarily from the letters of Paul, is chosen also in a semi-continuous fashion. So we'll read for a number of consecutive weeks from, for instance, the letter of St. Paul to the Romans, or one of the letters to the Corinthians, or we might switch and read from one of the letters of St. Peter, or any of the other epistles.
Having listened to God's Word, the priest or the deacon is then called upon to break open that Word among the people, to show the relevance of God's Word in our everyday lives today, to inspire us, to challenge us, and to change us. It's important for the priest or the deacon to know his people so that those words can really touch their hearts and change their lives in the way that God intends.
All your sins are washed away, all washed away. It's so amazing. It's like a free ticket to heaven. It's so amazing in this great gift that God has given us. It's the doorway to salvation. It's a time when God says, I want you. I want you to be my son. I want you to be my daughter. I want you to be my child.